And the big trade that kicked it all off was Sauce Gardner getting traded to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 firsts and A.D. Mitchell. A stunner. It was rumored the Colts were looking for cornerback or defensive back help. I didn't necessarily know Sauce Gardner was available. He was under contract, signed an extension recently. And my first reaction to the trade, I'd be interested to see what y'all's first reaction is. Well, it's twofold. First, 2 firsts for Sauce Gardner seems super steep, followed up immediately by clearly the Colts are going all in, and so respect to that. But y'all's thoughts on this trade?
For me, my first reaction was that it immediately conveyed that they are all in on Daniel Jones, not just for this year, but for next year and the year after that, because it's 2026 and 2027 first-round draft picks. That's the most favorable position to draft a quarterback. And so they are communicating they don't plan on drafting a quarterback in the next 2 years' drafts, meaning they're probably all in on Daniel Jones, which who would have thought coming into the season after he signs his 1-year, $15 million deal that he would be the Colts quarterback for the foreseeable future. He'll still have to sign an extension. But that was, for me, my first reaction is, okay, we're all in on Daniel Jones, because you don't, even historically, teams that have done this kind of trade where they're trading multiple first-round picks, they've always been all in on their quarterback at that point. The one of them that happened this offseason, Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers. They traded 2 first-round picks. They have already signed Jordan Love to a massive extension, and so they're kind of all in on him. Another one that comes to mind is Jalen Ramsey. When he was traded from the Jaguars to the Rams, they were all in at the time. They had just reached the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, and they were all in on Jared Goff. Now, that didn't work out, but it kind of did because they trade for Stafford and win a Super Bowl with help of Jalen Ramsey. So the Colts are that. That's what they think they are, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. Their performance was poor this week, but we'll get into that game later.
Sure.
I believe they're 26th in opponent passing yards per game, so they're actually pretty weak against the pass.
Yeah.
And defensive back is where they've kind of been struggling. Tre'Davious Ward hasn't been out on the field really enough. Kenny Moore isn't at least continuing the play that he's had the past few years. So Sauce, I think the first question will get answered is, does getting traded to a team now that has hope completely change the way he plays? Because he's been poor last year and this year, but in his first 2 seasons, he was really, really good. Can he draw on that from joining a team that actually has a chance now? And it also, for the Colts, it's a great move, because if they're going to make the Super Bowl, which is what they hope at this point, they've got to beat the elite quarterbacks in the AFC, which all of them are for the most part. And to do that, I think having a shutdown corner helps a ton, even if there aren't really a lot of elite receivers in the AFC, really true number 1 guys. You need someone who can lock down someone.
Yeah, and I really like the trade for the Colts as far as, like, I've been in my mock drafts that I've been trying to do every week, and I'm still trying to get those posted. I've had them taking a cornerback just because that room's kind of old. Kenny Moore's 30, Tre'Davious Ward's 29. Ward played really well 2 years ago at San Francisco and was playing well before the injury. But that's just not the kind of thing that you would expect to be sustained much longer. Cornerbacks typically don't play well at this into their 30s. It's just hard to kind of keep up with younger wide receivers at that point, especially man corners. But for them, it makes a lot of sense to bring in a guy who's a lot younger. Gardner's only 25. It does mean you're getting rid of, not getting rid. You don't have your next 2 first-round picks, so you could have drafted a corner. But I think that this is a move for this year and also for future years. So it's a good blend of taking advantage of where you are now, already being 6-2, 7-2. So taking advantage of the record that you've got already, the position that you hold, trying to win the AFC South, fighting for that 1 seed, taking advantage of that, and then also setting yourself up for future success. Because, like you said, they do, I think, believe in Daniel Jones as being the long-term guy.
They better, and it better pan out for him.
Yeah.
I love it for this move on the Jets side of things.
Can we talk about that after the Quinn Williams trade? Just like
Sure.
combine that into
yeah,
one
yeah.
thing.
So let's move on to the next trade then.
Yeah.
An hour-ish after the Sauce Gardner trade, they announced they're trading their best player on the defensive line in Quentin Williams to the Cowboys. So Jerry Jones gets his star defensive player he was looking for in a trade, and they give up a 2027 first, and I believe it's the better of the Cowboys-Packers. They get whichever one ends up being higher, and then a second-round pick.
That's what
as
they
well.
call it. Well, in the NBA, it's got a name, right?
It's
It's
swap.
Protected.
pick
It's
swap.
I thought it was protected.
That's a
Protected
different
would
thing.
be if say it was top 10 protected and the pick ended up being in the top 10.
That's right. Yeah.
And
yeah.
I wouldn't have had to give up the pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of, I guess
It's a
it's
swap
blend
best.
of them.
Okay.
Is what it is.
Because there's, like, the Cowboys aren't getting the Jets' first-round pick.
Okay.
If the Jets' pick is worse than the
Yes.
Cowboys. But they're getting the best of the Packers' pick or the Cowboys' pick.
Okay.
Yeah. True. There's not really an exact term for it, but they're going to get whichever one ends up being better, and they're going to get a second-round pick as well for Quinnen Williams, and the Cowboys get someone to shore up the middle of their defensive line, help in the pass rush, but especially help shore up against the run.
Yeah.
And so the Jets come out of the trade deadline day with 3 first-round picks they previously didn't have, kind of a fire sale of sorts. They didn't give up all of their pieces, but there wasn't anything that was untouchable. They just didn't like what they had for the other pieces. Y'all's thoughts on this trade?
They were really close, apparently, to trading Brees Hall.
Yeah.
Because Brees requested a trade, and then Brees, apparently Kansas City almost traded with them.
Yeah.
But it was a discrepancy between Kansas City wanted to only give up a 4th, and the Jets wanted the 3rd. But for the Jets' case, both of these trades, you have to, I think, the valid reaction is to love it now, and then we'll decide if it worked out later. Because the Jets have actually, they've done well from picking perspective over the years, because all of these players that they're trading now are their draft picks.
Other than quarterback, they've done a good job picking.
Yes. Well,
And they're 0 for 2 in their
in
last
theory,
2
they
attempts.
hit on the quarterback with Sam Darnold,
is true.
and then just let him walk too early. And in theory, a decade ago, and then also not this year, before this year, they hit on Geno Smith. But that's, of course, for debate for some people.
So does that mean that Zach Wilson is going to be a great quarterback?
He could be.
It kind of feels like that's the trend. They draft Geno Smith, he gets out, becomes a good quarterback. Same for Sam Darnold.
It really helps for the people that bought that Fernando Mendoza is going to make the second contract after he becomes a Jet, and then goes down the Sam Darnold, Geno Smith path. But you kind of have to love it on paper for New York, because you have all this capital. My first immediate thought was, okay, well, now he can kind of attempt to go down the Dan Campbell Detroit Lions route, and now he has the picks to get the players that Detroit is using as their cornerstones in Aiden Hutchinson and Jahmyr Gibbs and Penei Sewell. The Jets can go and do that, and they've already added one. Hopefully, they at least hope, in Armand Minbu. And going forward, they hope they can add more with Aaron Glenn.
But that
and it
just,
can go down that similar path.
I just don't see, like, he's the defensive guy. So I feel like what you're saying is he's getting the pieces to go get his offensive pieces, but he just traded away his Aiden Hutchinson, his Brian Branch, his Alex Anzalone.
Well-
He's like trading away the pieces that he used in Detroit to make a great defense, to go build an offense. But, like, not to say that he's not involved in the offensive side of the ball, but, like, he's a defensive guy.
I'm saying he's
timelines-
building on both sides.
Yeah, and the timelines didn't really line up because they're years away from competing at the Jets at this point.
Yeah.
And so, in talking about the short time or lifespan that a great corner has and stuff like that, I think it made sense to just completely reset.
Yeah, but the Quinnen Williams one, I'm not a huge fan of.
Sure.
But, I mean,
It's a first and a second round pick, and also a former first round pick in Mozzie Smith. So
Yeah.
maybe that pick pans out, or he pans out in some way for New York. But I think you have to love it on paper, because it's giving yourself the capital to rebuild towards what you hope to. I don't think he's just going to build on the offensive side. I think he'll build on both, because he just traded away two defenders that they had under contract.
Yeah.
But they can now, at least they have more chances to go after a quarterback. I think like people's first maybe pushback to what I just said, and that they maybe could go down the Dan Campbell route is, oh, well, New York will never be Detroit. In fact, Detroit and New York have been pretty similar since the year 2000.
Yeah.
Detroit had a winless season. Like this, that is also a pretty poverty franchise at one point. They had Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson and couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
The Jets are in that similar story. Now, Detroit has finally turned it around, and I think Aaron Glenn wants to go down that path and hopes to do the same.
The kind of scary piece is where this could blow up if they're trying to follow that route, is they kind of started at having their quarterback, and they had that set. And so if the Jets try and draft their quarterback this year and just miss, they could end up being 3 years down the line and being like, okay, we've rebuilt all these pieces. We have our new Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson's still around and cooking. Offensive line is good, but Fernando Mendoza just didn't pan out, and so now we're stuck again.
Well, that's when you do what the Colts do, and you bring in the Daniel Jones kind of guy, and you just hit, because why not? The last thing I'll say about it, not the timeline not making sense, is if you're talking about them being years away from competition, why say no to a fourth for Breece Hall or whatever they said no to? Because it's kind of like in our college keeper leagues. I was helping Chomps with a trade when he was in town 2 weeks ago, and
Collusion admitted to live
no,
on
in
air.
a different league.
What's up,
Okay.
Whitehead?
And he was like, I'm trying to trade with one of these guys in my league. He's out of competition, and he's got a bunch of players that are graduating and good. And I said, you can offer him dirt for those guys because he has no power, right? Because he can't do anything with those guys. They're going to graduate, and then he will have nothing. If you offer him a 5th-round pick for them, he's going to say yes because that's better than nothing. The Jets, why say no to a trade for Breece Hall, whatever the offer is? Because the running back, I believe, has the shortest lifespan in the NFL, just due to the physicality involved in every run. It's just we've seen guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley be at the top of the game and then flare out immediately. So why say no to a trade for Breece Hall? I mean, I don't think you think he's going to be here in 4 or 5 years as a big part of the team.
Pride.
That's a stupid reason to say no to
Well,
a
yeah,
4th-round pick.
Agree with that, but would you agree that they got a really good price for Sauce Gardner
Yeah.
and Quinnen Williams?
Yeah.
Then they just wanted to go down the same path. They didn't think they got the right price.
Yeah.
I think that would be the argument there. I understand what you're saying completely.
But, yeah, I'm saying
But if they felt that way, they would have done that with Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner.
I just
already.
think of the thing of like, in a college keeper league that works. In the NFL, if you let it be known that you're going to let your arm get twisted and that you don't have leverage, then you're kind of screwed as that front office. If you just go, well, we wanted this, but then the Chiefs counter with this, and so I guess we'll just give him away, then it kind of, I don't know, it paints you in a different light, in my opinion, in terms of how other GMs see you.
I would also hate to trade my running back who we thought was going to be really, really successful, had a pretty decent rookie season, and hasn't panned out since then, to Kansas City, and then have to watch him 10 times on national television the next 2 to 3 years cook and be amazing. I couldn't live with that. I don't care what the price of the pick was, because why make the rich richer, I guess? Why make the really, really good team that much better? Like, that's why you don't trade to the Patriots and Tom Brady back in the day. You trade to the Cowboys and the Colts because Jerry Jones doesn't know what he's doing, and Irsay's daughter it's her first year as the GM there, and so there's no clue how that's going.
Was he a 1st-round pick?
Who? Breece Hall?
Breece Hall?
He was either that or a second.
Well, they didn't. If he was a first, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and they haven't extended him.
Well, then they may just let him walk.
And that's even worse. Like, if you let him walk and you could have got a 4th-round pick for him, I don't care how much
It's the Jets.
I know
you
it's the
can't
Jets.
make too much. That, like, the fact that we're giving praise for these two trades in the first place is actually a miracle.
Yeah.
Given how they have been.
Sure. For the Cowboys side of it, how do y'all like it? Because I have my opinion on it, and I guess if I can just jump in and give mine, and it's that.
I mean, my first reaction was that at least like he's trying, but you can't tell me that he couldn't have gotten these players as well with having Micah already there. Now the Quinton Williams one will be hard because even that would cap you even more financially. But you
Sure.
could have got Logan Wilson and maybe a different defensive tackle that is in between a Kenny Clark and Quinton Williams, or just two of them that equal up to him. But I again, it's so. I think it's just going to be so hard going forward to not look at moves that Jerry makes over the next 2 to 3 years and think they're stupid and they make no sense
Yeah.
with how bad the first one is. And that's how it's going to be with Nico Harrison and the Mavs and Luka Doncic.
You have a terrible foundation for your plan. So
I don't care that you got the first round pick and you got Cooper Flag. You still traded away Luka. That kind of thing. And that's going to feel that way with Micah and Dallas going forward. And so it is really hard to not view it in a negative light. But I do feel better about the team this year.
Sure.
They're at least trying to compete because the offense, while they have not produced the past 2 weeks, is good enough to win games in the playoffs, multiple
Agreed.
games in the playoffs.
yeah, I mean, you added undeniably a really good defensive player up front. Now it's not like the secondary in the linebacker core, though you did add Wilson, so maybe he helps the linebacker core. Not that he's necessarily a marquee name, but I don't know if the secondary is going to hold up their end of the bargain. Though maybe pass rush gets better, whatever.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is like you came into the year with the Micah thing, and you trade Micah, but you still want to compete, right? But at this point, past trade deadline this year, you're no better than you were when you traded Micah. And you were never going to be, is the reality. And sure, you now have an extra draft pick. But yeah, talking about competing this year and the way Jerry Jones talked about it, you're just not in a better spot than you were in the offseason. So that's what's kind of frustrating to me.
It's kind of like when the Browns, in my opinion, traded back with the Jaguars to take Mason Graham, let the Jags have Travis Hunter. I always thought that was a good process. I didn't really care how it ended up, because it's kind of like betting, right? You go with the choices that give you the best odds of success, the best odds of winning. I think that was a choice that gives them the best odds of success. It's a good process. It doesn't matter what Jerry Jones does from here on, because he just doesn't use the right process for team. Like, it just makes zero sense what he does there. And it's exactly like the Luka situation, where they trade away Luka and they bring in Anthony Davis. And Nico Harrison says, "Oh, it's because we think he gives us the best chance of winning," and everyone's just like, "That's just BS. Like, what? That's just absurd." Everything Jerry Jones, it doesn't matter. Like, he talks about wanting to compete and wanting to win, and everyone knows that you got rid of your best chance to do that already. So everything that comes out of your mouth just has zero truth behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to defend Jerry, though, one of the things he said post Micah trade is I'm paraphrasing. Now we have the ability to go get 4 guys, talking about the 4 first-round picks for the next 2 years. Some people have already said that by trading another first-round pick already, you don't have that ability to go get 4 guys. I think you do, and you already have acquired 2 of them.
Yeah, so you got
Quinton
a guy.
Williams and Kenny Clark. You've already acquired those 2 guys, and now you have the 2 first-round picks this coming year's draft, with the Green Bay pick and their pick, and that's 4 guys right there.
Yeah.
That is, and hopefully you hope that those 4 guys can equal Micah going forward. They probably won't, because, it's also like it's just a funny debate, because Quinton Williams is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL, but he's nowhere near to the amount of team impact that Micah is, clearly, because the New York Jets have never been elite with Quinton Williams, but the Cowboys have had just Micah and been a passable defense and made the postseason multiple years. But sadly, that's the case. So everyone, I think, is like viewing Quinton Williams down lower. It may work out for them, because Quinton Williams is going to be for the future, since he's under contract as well. But in Jerry's defense, he still can go get the 4 players he wants. Will that help? I don't think so.
Time will
I
tell.
actually would have preferred we just stick with the draft picks. We play out this year as it is. Maybe you go acquire guys like Logan Wilson and one other player, but don't trade your capital and use that capital in next year's draft and the following year's draft. Draft a quarterback
Sure.
because Dak is 2 to 3 years left. We hope he plays as long as he wants. Hope he plays as long as Brady did, but.
I would love for him to do what Brady did and go to somewhere that isn't dysfunctional when it comes to running an organization and have like a real chance at success.
The way
But
he's playing too, unless he suffers another catastrophic injury, he could probably play for 5 more years. I mean, Stafford's playing until he's 37. Of course, Rodgers is playing pretty late, so Dak still has that, I think, in front of him. But for the Cowboys, I would have rather had the picks and get 4 chances at drafting the quarterback of the future for the Dallas Cowboys, which you haven't done in multiple decades. So I think they would have been better off doing that than going again all in on this team by acquiring Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark. That's the definition of insanity.
I mean-
Continuing to try to go in on this team that can't get it done, clearly.
Yeah, I agree. But you kind of knew as soon as that trade was made that Jerry wasn't going to sit on his hands and not try and fix the team because it's kind of what he does.
Yeah.
He's not the most long-term guy when
Patient.
it comes to team building. Patient's a good word for it. Yes.